G'day everyone, True here with another African violet video. Today I wanted to talk to you about the light requirements of African violet plants and the different coloured foliage and how that can affect the amount of light that your African violet plant needs. So here I've got two examples. The one on the right is a darker coloured leaf African violet and the one on the left is a lighter coloured leaf African violet. So African violets with darker coloured foliage have a higher light requirement, and African violets with a lighter coloured foliage have a lower light requirement. Now the colour of the leaves is determined by the amount of chlorophyll that's in the leaves, and chlorophyll is important in the leaves. It gives it the green colour that it has, but it also absorbs energy from the sun and it helps in the process of photosynthesis, which is the plants producing oxygen and producing food to survive. So it's very important. So it's really important that when you're choosing a location for your African violet plants, that you keep this in mind. So your plants that have darker coloured foliage may need to go on higher shelves where they can get a higher amount of light intensity, and the ones that have the lower coloured lighter foliage can go on those lower shelves because they won't need as much light. Now, if you have growing lights, that can help with this problem, but you still also can have an issue because you may need to adjust the intensity of light because these lighter coloured foliage African violets, they won't need as intense amount of lights as these darker coloured leaf ones will. So you may need to sort of, maybe you can put your darker coloured African violets closer to the light, so higher up on like a little block or something, so they're a little bit closer to the light. And these lighter ones, maybe you might have to move them lower to the light, or you may have to just put all your light coloured African violets together and put them where you've got a lower intensity light, and then the darker African violet foliage plants where you've got a higher intensity amount of light. Now, you can tell if your plant's getting too much light because the leaves will start to get bleached and they'll go yellow-green. So, so that's something to look out for. You can also, the other thing is your plants need light and a lot of light so that they can stay healthy and flower. Now, if your plants don't have enough light, they won't flower. So you can give them heaps of fertilizer and regular fertilizer, but if they're not getting enough light, they won't flower. So the other thing to be really careful of too is that you don't crowd your African violet plants too close together because that can affect the amount of light that they're getting as well. So you need to sort of make sure that you have them spaced out evenly, and that way they'll each should be getting enough light. So the other thing to be really mindful of, and I've just got some notes here that I'm going through because unfortunately I'm getting older and my brain doesn't work as well as it used to. And I've got a lot of things here that I really think are really important to know with African violets. So if you're using growing lights, you may need to experiment a bit. You may need to work out like different locations of the plants. You might need to move them around. You might need to work out how long you're going to leave the lights on for. Now, it's important to remember that you don't leave your lights on all the time. Really important because African violets need approximately 8 hours of rest each day to grow really well. So they need like at least 8 hours of darkness. So why they need that is that when the lights go out, your plants stop photosynthesizing, but your respiration keeps going. So they respire all the time. And in the dark, plants do more growing than they do in the light. So, and that's because they have a whole day's worth of energy built up and they're ready to metabolize that energy, and they can only do that if they've got that period of rest at night. So they don't ever stop growing night, day. They don't stop growing when the lights go out. They actually grow more when the lights go out. So it's really important to remember that you give them that rest period. So another thing to remember is the temperature can also affect the light requirements of your African violets. So the hotter it is, the less light that African violets need. So let's talk about the amount of light now. So in an average lit room, an African violet needs 12 to 14 hours of light. So, and you drop 2 hours per day at the hottest time of the year of light, and you increase it 2 hours per day at the coldest time of the year, because that temperature will affect the light requirements of your plants. So grow lights can help regulate these issues. You can set timers which can help you do that. So the intensity of the light that they get will also affect them. So in a bright room, they'll need a shorter length of light, maybe 6 to 8 hours. And in a dark room, they'll need a lower light. In a dark room, you'll need to increase the amount of light. So they may even need up to 14 to 16 hours of light. So light's really, really important. It's really important to remember that plants need that period of darkness to work properly. And if they don't get that period of darkness, it will actually harm them. So you don't want to leave them in, a lit room all the time, and you don't want to leave them with your growing lights on all the time. So there's just a few things, very quick tips to try and remember. There's a lot to remember, but it's just more the basic rules to remember is if you have a darker colored African violet leaves, that they need more light. And if you have a lighter colored African violet leaf, they won't need as much light. But all African violets need a lot of indirect light in order to be able to flower and be healthy and do all the processes that their bodies need, or their leaves structure need, in order to remain healthy. So it's just a little something to think about, and I don't think it's something that's mentioned very often. And I'm sorry that I was a bit disjointed in saying things, because there's a lot of points to try and remember, and I hope I've explained it relatively well. But if you have any questions or anything that you think I've sort of not explained well enough, please send me a message, and I can get back to you and just go through in a little bit more detail what needs to be done from a light perspective and a leaf color perspective. So I hope this video has helped, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.